I am New York.
Yes, I'm New York.
I am New York.
Yo soy Nueva York.
Sono New York.
Je suis New York.
We are New York.
Welcome to DiverseCITY, where we explore New York's eclectic enclaves, one neighborhood at a time. I'm Zyphus LeBron. This month we're coming to you from Shirley Chisholm Park in East New York. The park is named after the Brooklyn native who was the first black woman to be elected to the U.S. Congress. Its bike paths and rolling hills are a long-awaited addition to the residential majority-minority community in eastern Brooklyn. The area used to be majority white, but that changed with a wave of white flight during the 1960s. These days, the neighborhood has earned a reputation as the busiest police precinct in New York City. But there may be a sea change coming. There's a comprehensive city-led plan to create and maintain affordable housing in the district, and the New York Economic Development Corporation has invested over $16 million into an industrial business zone that hopes to bring new economic life to the area. On this episode, Trust Exercises, the effort to turn underutilized land into employment and housing opportunities. Breaking the food chain, increasing access to healthy, culturally relevant crops in a known food swamp. And Blue Blockade, an uphill battle to heal wounds between the NYPD and the community. Those stories and more coming up on DiverseCITY. There's a growing movement among many neighborhood activists around the city to demand that land be given to the community rather than to private development or left neglected. Shannon Ayala has the story of one such group that started up in East New York.
We're standing behind a city lot that currently is vacant and underutilized. We knew that this was prevalent in our neighborhood. And that it was historical also.
Boris Santos is the treasurer of the East New York Community Land Trust, or CLT. A CLT is a group that takes city-owned public land off the market and acts as a steward.
I equate it to community ownership. The land will be under the community's name, the East New York Community Land Trust, governed through a nonprofit, which is composed through a board and so forth, and members that anyone in the community can be part of.
There are a number of CLT groups emerging around the city, working out proposals to get land transferred to them. In New York City, these groups have a historical blueprint, the Cooper Square CLT. That organization has overseen residential and commercial properties in the East Village since 1991.
That's the sort of McDaddy of New York City Community Land Trust, is this Cooper Square Community Land Trust.
Nandini Bagchee is an associate professor of architecture at City College. Her firm, Bagchee Architects, is involved with a new wave of CLTs around the city, including the East New York CLT. She says the city became a de facto owner of many of these lots during the 1970s.
I was really interested in the idea of how in the 70s all these community groups acquired land when, the city was sort of putting them into these tax lien sales and co-opting them because of non-payment of taxes. So the city came into and acquired a large number of properties, a lot of them residential.
Santos says the goal is not just to claim land before developers do, but to claim it to solve social problems.
We know that we're in a housing crisis. We know that there's needs out here in East New York. We know that there's high levels of unemployment, low levels of educational achievement. Why not utilize these lots as that opportunity?
Last spring, the East New York CLT put out a report it calls a black paper. The document identified 21 lots in East New York that are owned by agencies like Housing Preservation and Development and the Parks Department, but are used as NYPD parking lots. The CLT is targeting 7 of those lots in the Industrial Business Zone, or IBZ, in the northwest corner of the neighborhood.
Well, we wanted to make sure that we're highlighting to the mayor and saying, look, not all agencies take care of their properties as well, which is a misconception. If you go through NYPD properties, a lot of it are heavy weeds. A lot of it, you see rocks, debris everywhere, and no upkeep.
There's vast amounts of empty lots that are being used very inefficiently for parking of buses and cars. And then there's NYPD, parking all over the sidewalk in addition to the vacant lots. So it's a real, it just feels wrong,
The CLT has not made its pitch to the city yet as to what they see as an alternative to these overgrown lots. They are currently getting input on ideas from the community.
We're looking at the future of industrial manufacturing and who are the businesses that we can make sure that operate here, that can bring jobs, that can hire locally and so forth.
Bagchee says she's currently working on the group's next report, focused on the 7 lots in the Industrial Business Zone. Shannon Ayala for DiverseCITY.
While East New York might symbolize the cliche of a concrete jungle, East New York Farms has been carving out green space for residents since the year 2000. Craig Thompson did a bit of digging for this next piece.
Back in October, East New York Farms held a food pantry distribution event at one of their 2 gardens, located right off of New Lots Avenue.
We do fresh food pantry distribution, so we have our Tuesday distributions, which are from 3:30 onward, where we harvest produce from the farm and we distribute it to the community members.
Members of the community line up at least an hour beforehand to load up on the fresh vegetables from the farm that takes up half a city block. City College student Iyeshima Harris says the food is fresh and free and culturally relevant to the community.
East New York has a high population of African Americans and especially Black people from the Caribbean. Most of what we have here on the farm, we have a lot of culturally relevant produce. So we have long beans, we have billy melon, we have okra, we have callaloo, we have Malabar spinach or Guyanese callaloo. We have different varieties of peppers like hot peppers and seasoning peppers.
Iyeshima Harris is the co-project director of East New York Farms. The Farms is part of the larger nonprofit United Community Center. The center is a neighborhood group with preschool and new immigrant programs, as well as sexual health seminars and farmers markets. Harris's work has roots in the food justice movement.
Food justice is a movement that focuses around environmental justice, environmental sustainability, and urban agriculture. And the basis of food justice is creating and growing affordable, locally cultural relevant produce for communities that need it the most. We are the only food justice program or project in East New York.
East New York as a community struggles with food insecurity. According to recent data from Hunter College, 18% of residents in East New York don't know where their next meal is coming from. East New York Farms is just one of a growing number of gardens in the area that are enlisting volunteers to help address the issue.
But for the most part, it's all about the volunteers. If we don't have volunteers to make it happen, then the gardens fall apart.
William Pape is the outreach coordinator in this area for the city's Green Thumb program, a program founded in the 70s to rehab abandoned and derelict lots. He oversees 57 community gardens in East New York. He says gardens like this one have grown abundant, despite the area's history.
In the 70s, there was not much money, so there was disinvestment. So as a result, this lot, like many, maybe almost all of them, was abandoned by whoever owned it, and they either didn't pay their taxes and so the city took it over, or they sometimes burned them and tried to collect insurance.
The city stepped in, bought many of these vacant lots, and the community garden movement was born. But Pape is concerned about an aging volunteer workforce.
If you were to look at the typical membership role of gardens, at least in East New York, because that's the ones I'm most familiar with, you would find that the leaders tend to be in their 70s, and the members not far behind in their 50s and 60s. So there definitely is, in my opinion, a real important effort to bring in a newer generation. And the generations that live around in East New York have grown up with going to the bodega, going to the local store. That's where they get their food. It's no coincidence that the folks that are like the leaders of the gardens now are often from the islands, the Caribbeans, or they're from places where it was an agrarian country, and they had literally had their hands in the soil.
Back at East New York Farms, Iyeshima Harris, who grew up in the neighborhood with a garden in her backyard, works hard to get youth interns interested in tilling the soil.
As more retail jobs, fast food jobs are available, and they're paying more, and they could offer more hours, young people are more geared towards those kind of work. However, we still do have youth that are interested in that role, and what we're finding is that community gardeners want to have the younger generation in their garden because they tend to be older senior citizen, and they're tired. They want to give up their space. They don't know who to give and transition the site to. And what we're trying to do is to mold and grow and secure youth to take over those spaces so that those spaces don't die out. We're hoping to make growing food fun again.
For DiverseCITY, I'm Craig Thompson.
The rift between East New York residents and the NYPD's 75th Precinct remains wide amidst allegations of corruption and police brutality. However, there's a group of residents who want to bridge that divide. We hear more about the effort in this report from our student producer, Hannah Kavanagh.
I believe there has to be a partnership between the police and the community, but at the same time, we can't police our way out of the issues that we face as a community.
This is Christopher Banks, a longtime community organizer and the current president of the 75th Precinct Community Council. The organization is a volunteer-run police liaison group founded in 1965. Banks first got involved in the community council after noticing a lack of local engagement.
It started maybe at the early age of 20 when I started attending precinct council meetings. Growing up here in East New York, you have to feel the need to want to get involved when you see injustices taking place, whether it's police brutality or just East New York not getting the services that we need. And I said, okay, this has to change. I got to be a part of the change so we can get a multifaceted of voices because public safety is important.
But Banks may have his work cut out for him. East New York is a community that's had issues with the police. So much so that 75th is called the busiest NYPD precinct. The former commanding officer, John Mastronardi, was moved from his post after allegedly slamming a detainee's head into a sidewalk during a fight regarding mask rules. Banks said that he's working with the new leadership and is continuing to hold them accountable.
There was a young man who had a mental health issue, was shot in the groin and in the leg by a police officer. But here you had a family who's been crying out for months and months that they wanted their son to get some type of mental health.
We have been in contact with the 75th Precinct, but as of the reporting of this piece, they have not commented for our story. Despite everything, Banks says he's had to get the community motivated.
Under my leadership of the last year or so, well, a couple of months since I've become president, the attendance has increased.
That's awesome.
Post the pandemic. So we're talking about anywhere from 100 to 150 members from the community all coming out to the meeting, which has never been done before.
The Community Council gets support for these efforts through donations from local small businesses as well as collaborations with various government officials.
We've worked with Nikki Lucas, who's currently the New York State Assembly person. We've also partnered with Congressman Jeffries, and we've also worked with Roxanne Prasad. And I think it's important, I don't believe change is going to come through any elected official. I believe it has to be a people's movement, and it has to be a bottom-up movement.
Reporting from DiverseCITY, I'm Hannah Kavanaugh.
Starrett City has been touted as a bastion of affordability and a symbol of middle-class mobility since it was built back in the 1970s. But as I found out, that might no longer be enough to keep the residents happy. Starrett City is a sprawling development that currently sits on about 140 acres of land on the southeastern edge of Brooklyn near Jamaica Bay. As this commercial from 1979 shows, it was supposed to be the epitome of middle-class style and affordability.
Listen to what these people like best about living here.
It's lovely here. Lots of trees. It's safe. It really works.
When I saw this place with big rooms and parquet floors, I said, this is too good to be true.
These days, it's a different story, as these residents would tell it.
When I first came, I would say an A+. It was just everything. Everything was perfect. I could sort of say, now, I might say a C-.
And for Starrett City, currently at 2022, what would your letter grade?
I'd give them an F.
You give them an F?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Caraballo moved to the 5,800-unit complex with her family in 1980. She gives management a failing grade because she says she can't get anything fixed.
We used to have the painters, we used to have electricians, we used to have everybody who had to work on the apartments on site. We had our own people. Now, they no longer have them, they outsource.
Kavata Washington has lived here for more than 30 years. Though she waxes very poetic about the good old days, she doesn't feel as safe.
Now there's like some widows here and they're taking people from out the shelter and stuff and homeless, and you can tell.
Caraballo blames part of the change on a change in ownership. She and the rest of the Tenants Association are trying to keep management accountable. Have you guys made the management aware of these sorts of issues?
Yes.
And what's been the response?
They're working on it, they're doing it, they have to outsource, they're no longer here. Okay, excuses.
When we reached out to Spring Creek Towers, the company that owns and runs the development, they did not respond to our phone calls or emails for comment. Starret is the largest federally subsidized housing development in the country. This city in the park has a public school within its borders, as well as shops and other amenities. It's had its share of financial issues over the last few years, but its fortunes changed in 2021 with an injection of $140 million after a $1 billion buyout. Despite its financial frustrations and resident critiques, the complex still has something going for it.
It accounts for about 8% of the housing stock in East New York. 8% of the population of East New York lives in Starrett City. It's really a bulwark of affordability for that neighborhood.
Charles McNally is the Director of External Affairs at the NYU Furman Center, a housing and urban policy organization. He says that Mitchell-Lama housing, like Starrett City, really helped build the city's middle class in the 1950s. He explains that the program heavily relies on government subsidies that allow private organizations like Spring Creek Towers to provide affordable housing.
The Mitchell-Lama program, initial construction relied on low-interest loans and tax exemptions. Starrett City also benefits from a long-term project-based Section 8 contract with the Department of Housing and Urban Development that subsidizes rents for, I believe, roughly half, just under half of the units there. They continue to receive favorable financing terms, which reduces the cost of operations, and that allows them, to charge below market rents and still, make the building economically feasible to run.
At a time when rents in the city are at an all-time high, that affordability may be helping some residents swallow a bitter pill. What's keeping you here, honestly? What's keeping you here? Just the rent? Familiarity?
Where am I going to go? I can't go down south because they have no sidewalks, and I don't drive. So it's like, that's difficult.
Kingsborough Community College is trying to make it easier for some East New York residents to access higher education. To that end, the school has partnered with the Mutual Housing Association of New York to open its first ever satellite location in the neighborhood's Cypress Hills section. Weekly classes will be held in a 14-story building known as Chestnut Commons. The college's Vice President for Workforce Development and Continuing Education, Simone Rodriguez, tells us why the Manhattan Beach-based school made the outreach to this community in particular.
We have about 120 students who reside in Cypress and attend Kingsborough Community College. And so for us, it was an extension really of our commitment to the students and the community. We wanted to extend CUNY's footprint, so this was definitely a way of doing that in serving young people and adults who are interested in higher education. We have 2 classrooms here at the site. Mondays through Saturdays, we're able to offer classes either from 9 in the morning or 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night. Classes actually started on November 1st. We started with a certified nursing assistant class with approximately 15 students. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to offer even more classes, either in ESL or other courses that students may be interested in. It was really the need from the community for us to offer the certified nursing assistant class, and for us it was the best way to serve the community. And with the ESL class that's going to be offered as well, it's also part of the need for the residents here. We can accommodate about 300 students per year because we offer our classes 4 times following the college's schedule. And so for us, having 300 students to start and then being able to build out from that, we'll try to accommodate as many of them as we can. As part of our strategic plan for community partnerships, we have seen an increase in enrollment of this community from the past 2 years or so. And so we believe our physical presence will definitely continue in the long-term plans that we have. And our goals will really be to offer more programs and eventually, with city and possibly state funding, provide a shuttle for students to take classes from here and be able to move on to the main campus, just to participate in some of the resources that we have there as well. The service will definitely expand in terms of the student experiences with connecting more to the college and provide access to a number of resources. But more importantly though, we want to expand our pool of students attending and graduating from Kingsborough, and we're striving to work on that.
That's our look at East New York in Brooklyn. Join us next time when we'll head over to Yorkville on Manhattan's Upper East Side. Till then, thanks for joining us as we explore our diverse city.